I found it on a quiet Saturday afternoon while cleaning out the garage before our big move. It was tucked away in a dusty cardboard box, wedged into the farthest corner of a cabinet I'd never opened before. When I lifted the lid, I saw a tiny faded blue baby shirt, carefully folded like something precious. But the moment I touched it, I knew it didn't belong to our daughter. She was born in winter, and we never dressed her in blue. Ever. I picked it up, the fabric soft and worn, carrying a faint scent of milk and thyme. My heart pounded. At the bottom of the box, there was a small birthday card. No name. Just a shaky line, written in a child's handwriting. "I love you, Daddy." I turned to my husband. He was staring at the floor, avoiding my eyes. My mouth opened, but no words came. It wasn't just the shirt or the card. It was the way his body stiffened. In that moment, I realized there was a part of his life I had never been allowed to touch, and it was wrapped in soft blue cotton, hidden in the dark. I confronted him that evening, the baby shirt still clutched in my hand, like evidence from a crime scene. "Whose is this?" I asked, keeping my voice even. He glanced at it and shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe something from the previous owners." I almost laughed. We'd lived here for over 8 years. That excuse was not just lazy, it was insulting. Before I could say more, I heard the front door creak open. It was my mother-in-law, Margaret. She dropped by unannounced, something she often did, usually with a casserole or unsolicited advice. But this time, she looked straight at the shirt in my hand, her face tightening. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice sharp. I told her I found it in the garage. Without another word, she walked over, took it gently from my hand, and folded it as if it were glass. "It's just an old keepsake," she muttered. "It doesn't mean anything." She moved toward the door, clearly intending to leave, but I stepped in front of her. "Who does it belong to?" I pressed. She met my eyes, briefly, but something in her gaze shifted. A flicker of guilt. Then it was gone. "It's none of your business," she said quietly, and walked out. That night, I barely slept. My husband refused to talk. I watched his back as he lay facing the wall. There was something cold about him lately, something I couldn't explain. The silence in our room felt louder than any screaming match. The next morning, I looked through his drawers, not out of spite, but out of desperation. I didn't know what I was hoping to find until I found it. His old phone, buried under a stack of papers in a locked drawer. It was an older model I hadn't seen in years. I charged it, opened it, and felt my stomach twist. Most of the photos were mundane. Work trips, scenery, the two of us smiling at barbecues. But then I found a video. It was shaky, obviously filmed in a rush. A little girl, maybe 4 or 5, giggled from behind the camera. "Daddy!" she squealed, and the camera shifted. My husband's face came into view. He was younger, holding a balloon in one hand and a stuffed bear in the other. "I missed you, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down. "You've grown so much." The video cut off. I sat there, phone trembling in my hands. No date, no explanation, just proof. There was a child, and he called her sweetheart. I couldn't stop thinking about the video, the way he smiled at her, the softness in his voice. I hadn't seen that tenderness in years. It wasn't just the presence of a child. It was the intimacy. That little girl wasn't some random stranger's daughter. She was his. And somehow, for all this time, I'd been living with a man capable of hiding something so enormous. That night, while he showered, I picked up his current phone. I wasn't proud of it, but pride wasn't exactly a luxury I could afford anymore. I didn't find photos or videos. He was more careful now. But the messages, they told another story. A contact saved as just the letter S. No emoji, no last name. I scrolled through their short, carefully worded exchanges. S. "Can we come this weekend?" Him. "Not this time, she's asking questions." S. "Okay, she misses you." Him. "Tell her I love her." Then one that made my fingers go numb. S. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy." I felt something hot rise in my throat. My daughter had baked him a cake just last week. She thought she was the only one who called him that. He walked into the room, towel around his waist, hair still dripping. He paused when he saw me with his phone. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I just held up the screen with the last message showing. "Who is she?" His expression hardened, but only for a second. Then he sank onto the edge of the bed, hands in his lap. "Her name is Sophie." I waited, but he didn't go on. "And? She's my daughter." The words were so simple, so clean, as if they didn't carry the weight of a betrayal that had just cracked my world in two. "With who?" "A woman I dated before I met you. Her name was Lily. I didn't know about Sophie until after we got married. Lily didn't tell me she was pregnant, not until Sophie was 3. So, you've known this for years?" My voice was sharp, shaking. He nodded. "And you never told me?" He looked at me then, eyes hollow. "I was going to. But then you got pregnant. And my mom, she said, telling you would ruin everything." I stared at him. Not just hurt, not just angry, but hollowed out. I was his wife. I carried his child. I built a life with him. And somewhere out there, a little girl I'd never met was calling him Daddy, and I hadn't even known her name. The next morning, I couldn't sit still. I paced from room to room like a ghost, opening drawers, pulling down boxes, trying to find, I didn't even know what. Proof? A lie? A reason? Our attic was filled with the remnants of a decade lived together. Baby toys, Christmas ornaments, unopened wedding gifts we never used. Near the back, under a box labeled office stuff, I found a small wooden chest I didn't recognize. It wasn't locked, just dusty and old. Inside, among random papers and receipts, was a photograph, ripped clean down the middle. I held it carefully, staring at what was left. My husband, kneeling in a park, arms wrapped around a small child. Her curly hair framed a chubby, laughing face. He looked up at her like she was the sun. And the other half of the photo, the mother, I assumed, was missing. Torn away, erased. My hands shook as I traced the edge of the photo. I had never seen him look that free, that full of joy. That wasn't the man I knew now. The one who moved through our house like he was always 10 steps behind his thoughts. Downstairs, I waited for him at the table, photo in hand. When he came in, I didn't speak. I slid the picture toward him. He stared at it for a long time. "You kept this," I said. "You buried it in the attic, but you kept it." "She's my daughter," he said quietly. I couldn't throw it away. "But you could throw away the truth." His mouth opened, but I raised a hand. "Don't. Just don't." He sat down, rubbing his temples. "I loved Lily. I thought maybe she was the one. But then she left. No explanation. Just disappeared." "She didn't disappear, she was pregnant." He winced. "She told me years later," he continued. "By then, I was married to you. We had a baby on the way. I thought I could separate the two lives." I stood. "You mean lie?" He didn't argue. That night, when our daughter was asleep, I went back to the photo. I stared at that tiny smiling face, so much like my husband's. I tried to imagine what kind of life she'd lived, on the fringes, in the shadows, watching her father build a new family without her. How many birthdays had he missed? How many times had she asked about me? And what had Lily told her? I placed the torn photo back in the chest, but I didn't close the lid. Some things needed to stay open, so we could finally see what had been hidden for too long. I needed answers from someone who wasn't tangled in lies. Not my husband, not his mother. Someone who had seen it all, but had no reason to protect him. So I drove to the old neighborhood, the one he'd lived in before we met. The houses all looked the same, only more worn down, as if time had quietly eaten away at their edges. I pulled up in front of a yellow bungalow with chipping paint. I remembered him mentioning once that his old neighbor, Mrs. Genevieve, used to bake cookies for the kids and gossip over the fence. She was still there, older now, maybe in her late 70s, with her grey hair pulled back in a bun and a small dog curled at her feet. She squinted at me as I walked up the porch. "You're James's wife, aren't you?" she said before I even introduced myself. "I always knew he'd end up with a sweet one." I gave a tight smile. "I was hoping you could tell me about someone. A little girl. Sophie." Her face didn't change much, But something in her posture did. She leaned back in her chair and sighed. You found out, huh? I just need to know. She nodded slowly. I remember the day Lily moved in. She was quiet, kept to herself, but you could tell she'd been through something. Then one day there was a baby. No one knew where the father was until James showed up out of nowhere. He came here? Often, she said. He'd sit on that porch swing with Sophie, sometimes for hours. He looked proud, but scared. I think he wanted to do the right thing, but he was already living another life. Then one day he just stopped coming. My stomach tightened. Why? His mother showed up one day. I don't know what she said to Lily, but the next morning, Lily had packed up and left. No goodbye, just gone. I felt like someone had dropped a weight on my chest. I tried to call James, she continued, but his number changed. Then Lily died in that car crash last year. Poor Sophie. That child's been through too much. I sat there in silence, the wind brushing past us like a whisper of everything unsaid. Do you know where she is now? I asked. She nodded. She's living with a foster family, but I think she's still in town. I have the name of the social worker if you want it. I swallowed hard. Part of me didn't want to open that door, but the other part, the one that had held that tiny blue shirt in her hands, already had. Yes, I said, I want it. Because no matter what my husband or his mother had done, that little girl had been left in the dark for too long. And I was done letting secrets raise children. The foster home was a small 2-story brick house, tucked at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. A white mailbox with peeling paint read, Sanders Family. I parked down the street and sat in the car, staring at the front door like it might open on its own and give me an answer. My hands were shaking when I rang the bell. A woman in her 50s answered, her face warm but wary. Can I help you? I introduced myself, told her I had spoken to the social worker. She nodded and opened the door wider. You're the wife of her father? I didn't know what to say to that. Yes and no. It's complicated. She gave me a look that said, aren't they all? Then gestured inside. Sophie's in the backyard. I stepped through the house, my heart pounding louder with every step. And then, through the sliding glass door, I saw her. She sat alone on the porch steps, hugging her knees. A book lay beside her, untouched. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and she was wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big. But when she looked up, I felt the air catch in my lungs. Her eyes, they were his. I stepped out slowly, not wanting to startle her. She didn't move, just watched me with guarded curiosity. Are you my new caseworker? She asked. No, I said softly. I'm not here for that. She tilted her head. Then why are you here? I sat down 2 steps away from her. Because I think you and I share something. Or someone. She studied me. I could see the calculations spinning in her mind. The years of being told half-truths. The instinct to protect herself. My name's Sophie, she finally said almost defiantly. I know, I replied, and I'm married to your dad. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't cry. She just looked away and muttered. I figured. I blinked. You did? She nodded. He always came alone, talked about his other kid like she was on TV or something. I knew there was someone else, someone real. I sat there speechless. She turned back to me. Is she nice? Your daughter? I smiled faintly. She's strong and stubborn and funny. Sophie didn't smile. Is she lucky? The question sliced me open. She's loved, I whispered. But so are you. She looked at me then, long and hard. You don't even know me. I want to, I said. Silence stretched between us, not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind that waits for something to begin. Finally, she picked up her book and stood. Okay, she said, but no baby pictures. I hate those. I laughed. And for the first time since this all began, something cracked inside me. Not from pain, but from the faintest flicker of hope. A bridge had just started to build itself, and I was ready to cross it. I didn't go home right away. I needed air. I needed space. But more than anything, I needed to look Margaret in the eyes and ask her one simple question. Why? When I pulled up in front of her house, she was already on the porch, like she knew I'd be coming. She was sipping tea with her legs crossed, calm as ever. That unshakable calm used to impress me. Now, it made my skin crawl. I suppose you've met her, she said, not even looking up. Sophie, I said. Her name is Sophie. Not her, not a secret, not a mistake. She set her cup down gently. She's not a mistake, but she wasn't supposed to be part of your life. Excuse me? Margaret stood. James was finally happy, stable, with a real future. Then Lily shows up with that child and threatens to ruin everything. And you, pregnant, glowing, so in love with him. I wasn't going to let that woman drag him back. I stared at her. So you told him to keep it hidden. I told him the truth, she said coldly, that you'd leave, that you wouldn't want to raise someone else's child. My voice cracked. You don't know what I would have done. You never gave me a choice. She tilted her head. Of course I did. I gave you the illusion of choice. That's what mothers do when they protect their sons. My stomach churned. I felt the air leaving my lungs in slow, painful exhales. You found her? She added quietly. Did she ask about her mother? Yes, I said. But she asked more about her father, and she didn't ask about you at all. That stung. I saw it. Just for a moment, the mask slipped. I could have helped her, I continued. We could have helped her, but you decided she wasn't worth the trouble. She's not yours, she hissed. She is now, I said. She's not my blood, but she's my burden, and my choice. Margaret shook her head, that patronizing smirk creeping back in. You'll change your mind when the weight settles in. 2 girls, 1 broken marriage. It'll crush you. I stood tall. The only thing crushing me was the weight of your lies, and I finally put that down. She turned away, her tea now cold and forgotten. I walked down those porch steps with no need to look back. I'd come for truth, and I got more than I bargained for. But I also got clarity. She didn't act out of love. She acted out of fear of losing control, of breaking an image she'd spent years crafting. But that image was already shattered, and I wasn't going to glue it back together just to make her comfortable. When I got home, James was sitting at the kitchen table, his hands folded like a child waiting for punishment. He looked up when I walked in, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. I went to see her, I said. He didn't speak. She's smart and funny and guarded, like someone who's learned not to expect too much. Still silence. I told her I want to get to know her, and I meant it. He finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you hate me? I shook my head. No, I wish I could. It'd be easier. His shoulders collapsed inward, like my forgiveness somehow hurt worse than my rage. She asked me about your daughter, I continued. Our daughter. She wanted to know if she was lucky. He flinched. I didn't know how to answer at first, but I told her yes, because she's had both of us, present, consistent, loved. Sophie has had none of that. I know, he murmured. I've failed her. You failed me too, I said, sharper than I intended. You let your mother decide what I could handle. You lied, not just to me, but to a little girl who looked at you like you hung the stars. Tears welled in his eyes, but I didn't stop. I'm not asking for explanations anymore. I'm asking for action. He blinked. What does that mean? It means we fix this, starting now. No more shadows, no more secrets. And us, he asked? Is there still an us? That question hung in the air like a loaded gun. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked into the living room and called our daughter downstairs. She came bounding in, still in her pajamas, her hair wild from sleep. There's someone I want you to meet, I said. She looked confused. Who? I opened the front door, and Sophie stepped in, clutching a small stuffed bear. My daughter's eyes widened. She looks like me. I nodded. That's because she's your sister. There was a long pause. Sophie looked terrified. My daughter looked curious. And James, he looked like he couldn't breathe. I knelt beside both girls. This is hard and confusing, but we're going to figure it out. Together. My daughter reached out first, handing Sophie a hair tie from her wrist. Want to play Mario Kart? Sophie nodded slowly. Okay. They disappeared into the den. James sat down, burying his face in his hands. I don't deserve this. No, I said softly. You don't, but they do. Forgiveness isn't always quiet. Sometimes it storms in, loud and clumsy, and wrapped in awkward introductions. Sometimes it's not about who deserves it, it's about who needs it. And in that moment, we all did. There are two kinds of stories we tell our children, one with words and one with actions. For too long, Sophie only knew the first kind: whispered promises, excuses, quiet visits in the dark. Now she knows the second kind. She knows what it feels like to wake up to pancakes, to be told you belong here, even if it still feels strange. She and my daughter argue over cereal flavors and braid each other's hair. It's awkward sometimes, messy, but it's real. James is different too, not perfect, not healed, but present and trying. As for me, I still catch myself waiting to feel whole again, the way I did before the blue shirt, before the ripped photograph, before the silence broke. But maybe wholeness isn't the point. Maybe it's about standing in the mess and choosing to stay. People ask if I've forgiven him. I don't always know how to answer. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process. A choice I make every morning when I see Sophie brushing her teeth beside her sister, like she's always belonged here. I am a mother of two now, one born from my body, the other from my broken heart.